often feels like, Justice Whitener, that the rule of law is being challenged from the top down. The idea that our government governs for all people has slipped. What happens when local officials, whether state, city, or county, decide that they should unilaterally not follow or enforce the law? Let me give you an example. Sanctuary cities or enforcing gun control. How does a justice balance what is right or what feels moral with the law in question says? And you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. Well, morality, which we all have, is embedded in ethics, equality, those sorts of ideologies. And judicial officers, we take an oath, and the oath is to uphold the Constitution for all within the confines of our state in regards to my position. And what we have to do is remove ourselves, our own personal beliefs, those moral codes that we all have embedded in us, to make sure that when we make our decisions, we're making the decisions based on the law in regards to the issue that is presented, and that we're not making law. We leave that to the legislative branch. But what's important in regards to the law is it's open to interpretation. So representation matters. So morality, for example, and if we're talking about equality, from someone as marginalized as I am, when I view equality, I already understand that we are not all equal because we're not all starting from the same place. When we deal with equity, even though we are giving each other some assistance, support mechanisms, some will need more than others. So in regards to what a judge has to do is remove your personal beliefs, and in regards to the law, because in regards to the issue, because you have taken an oath, and the oath is to uphold the Constitution as broadly as you can in regards to the issue that you have in front of you.
Well said. Judge Whitener, with the massive changes in the federal judiciary, the LGBTQ community is rightly very concerned about the rollback of our hard-won rights. What is the role of Washington's judiciary to defend our state's protected classes, particularly when those definitions and protections may be at odds with the federal government? And you have 5 minutes.
Well, that's an interesting question, because most folks don't realize that there are two constitutions at play. You have the federal Constitution, which applies to the entire United States, but each state has its own constitution, and it tends to provide greater protection to its citizens within its boundaries. So Washington State has greater protection afforded to its citizenry than arguably the federal government. And you can see that in that we have laws prohibiting discrimination that some states don't have, and that is in regards to the LGBT community, in regards to employment and housing, for example. We have marriage that is recognized and has been recognized since 2012, even though the federal government recognized in 2013. We have a commission that was formed just as recent as last year, 2019, a specific LGBTQ commission to address issues regarding our community. We have, and I believe I heard someone mention before, because the legislators deal with making law and the courts deal with interpreting and applying the law. So we have hate crimes that were put on the books, and the most recent one had to do with the gay panic defense, because actually there was a defense for assaults and murders by saying you were afraid for your life because this person indicated they were gay, or you were fearful of some sort, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But then, I'm gay, so I would find that ridiculous. And then we have things like the transgender protections, which I think is great, but not all states have it, in regards to the gender identity markers on our driver's licenses, ID, and even birth certificates. So that's something that within the state of Washington, the legislatures took it upon themselves to provide protection. And of course, the governor signed off on a lot of these. But the protections we have within the confines of our state are greater protections for the LGBT community than arguably, the federal government as well as other states. Some states are still fighting for some of these things.
Well said. On that note, we know that our state justice system is a product of hundreds of years of work from thousands of people. And that as it currently exists, it is not always easy for people to actually find justice in the resulting system, as you just beautifully illustrated. Here we go, big question. If you could snap your fingers and make one change, Judge Whitener, to Washington's judicial system from the ground up, what would that look like? You have 10 minutes.
I have a lot I'd like to change, but I have to pick one.
Okay, I'll give you two.
I think we have two things that are near and dear to my heart at issue here. One is, and I am co-chair of the Washington State Minority and Justice Commission, and that's a commission where we look at race and equity issues and how they apply within the confines of our court system to marginalized populations. And we look at things like bail reform, pretrial services, those sorts of things, legal financial obligations, and the barriers these have in regards to our constituents within the state. The other one that is near and dear to my heart is funding. And the system has been funded on the backs of marginalized individuals. And I belong to the Office of Civil Legal Aid Oversight Committee. And our charge is to, again, try and address civil legal, the deficiencies really, in providing civil legal aid, which affects all citizens. So housing, right now we're expecting a tsunami, for lack of a better word, in regards to evictions coming before our court because of COVID and what the legislature has put in place in order to address those things. So I think those are two major things that the court needs to look at because it affects access to justice. Transgender individuals, for example, they need money to get their licenses changed. First, they have to have a notary. They have to have money to file with the court. These things take money, and marginalized populations lack funds. In regards to race and equity issues, well, our court spoke back in June in regards to, and it addressed the killing of Mr. Floyd. And the Supreme Court put out a letter calling to, speaking to the legal profession in regards to the systemic and structural racism that has been embedded in our system for so long. And it has started a discussion amongst community members, not just in the legal community, not just even in Washington state, but across the United States, that says, hey, we have a problem here and we need to address it. And it's not necessarily just one group of people, but I tend to see things as all marginalized groups. We're intersected. Our issues are intersected, and I like to say they need to be addressed through accommodating eyes, because I also have a disability and I identify as a person with a disability. And if we can address a lot of these issues through accommodating eyes, I think it would help all of our communities, especially my LGBTQ community as well.
Judge Whitener, when you talk about
I really have a hard time saying Whitener, Amanda.
I'm sorry. Whitener, I should call you Helen, but I have too much respect for you for that. So, Judge Whitener, you mentioned civil legal aid.
Yeah.
Why would people might need it, and how could it be changed in Washington?
Well, civil legal aid came about after a task force was put together, showing a deficiency in regards to addressing civil matters. And most people come to our courts addressing civil matters. Everybody knows about crimes and defendants coming before the court, but most people that utilize the court actually address civil matters like divorces, family issues in regards to dependency and termination of parental rights, those sorts of things. Attorneys are needed. You have a constitutional right to have an attorney in a criminal matter, but not in a civil matter. So a lot of the individuals in the civil arena don't have representation because they can't afford attorneys. So the Office for Civil Legal Aid has contracts with different entities like Legal Voice and Northwest Justice System, where attorneys can be afforded to these individuals. We call those self-represented or pro se individuals without an attorney, to assist them in maneuvering through the justice system, because it is difficult. And most individuals don't understand it, don't know how to utilize it, and sometimes don't even know that it's there for them.
Last question for you before I send you back out into the world to save it. As you look at some of the pressing needs that we have right now, with the change in our Supreme Court, what keeps you awake at night?
The same things that kept me awake at night throughout my legal career, making sure I make the best decision I can in regards to the law. I was a prosecutor, I was a public defender, I understand both sides of the argument. When I joined the judiciary, I had people in front of me and making sure they understood that when they come before me, I'm going to do the best that I can with the law that I have, but utilizing my lens. I don't forget who I am. I'm Washington State's first Black female Supreme Court justice. It's fourth immigrant born. I'm still Washington State's first and only openly gay Black LGBT judicial officer. Those are sad commentaries. So I wanted everyone who came into my court to actually feel welcome and know that it was a safe space, but most importantly, they should know that they were going to have a judge who was going to listen to the case and try and make the best decision in regards to the issue that I had by applying the law through my lens, which is a very integral part of who I am.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
You are, as always, well, your authenticity and your brilliance always blinds me. And so I say thank you so much. Please forgive me for mispronouncing your last name. I am so indoctrinated and so in the process of waking up right now that the phrase white, I'm trying to get rid of in my vocabulary. And you are so intelligent that the wit comes right out of my mouth. So thank you so much for being here today, and give my best to you and your beautiful bride.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon, Justice. Thank you so much.
And say the best to you and your wife as well. And thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Bye.
And I want to say thank you to, of course, to GSBA and to Matt and to Carlos and the whole team here that made this possible.